everybody, and welcome to episode 98 of On the Road with AutoTrader, where we make car stuff simple for Canadians. My name is Jody Lai, and I'm the editor-in-chief of AutoTrader.
And I'm Sebastian Bell, and I'm the associate editor at AutoTrader.
Welcome back, everybody. I did not bring my glasses today, so if you didn't recognize me, that's what it is.
That's what it is.
I've been squinting at menus. I can't read anything because I didn't need to drive today because there is a legit snowmageddon outside.
It's so much snow. It's going nuts out there.
So I took the subway in today.
That's very smart.
And then I didn't grab my glasses on the way out.
I was silly and I drove in today and went sideways much of the way. So
Instant regret.
You made the right decision.
Yeah. So today, very important topic that we honestly get a lot of questions about. And it's when to replace your aging car. You know, like I'm a very thrifty, budget-focused person. And so recently this idea came up because I drive a 2015 Volkswagen Golf diesel.
A lovely
and a great car. Love her to death. It's a little bit rusty in some areas, but I'm going to basically drive it till it dies, right?
We live in a snowy country.
I know.
How could it not be rusty?
And so before winter, I had took it in to get my winter tires put on and to get an oil change, regular old stuff.
Yep.
But my car also surpassed 200,000 kilometers this year.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and I watched it roll up and I was so excited. I was like, I'm so proud of you, little car. But that also meant that that probably means it's time to do a bunch of work.
Yeah.
But I didn't tell the shop this. I was like, if they want to surprise me, they can. And I did end up being very surprised. So they did an inspection on it, and they determined that it needed $2,600 worth of work.
Oof.
I needed a transmission flush, new bushings, a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
And of course, I was pretty upset about it because I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money. I just went on vacation in Japan. I'm not exactly flowing, swimming in cash. So I was a little bit upset about it.
Totally.
I told my sister, my older sister, and she was like, oh my God, that car is costing you too much money. You have to get a new car. And I was like, are you nuts? Because a new car would cost so much more than what I pay for my current car. First of all, I bought it used. There's no debt on it. I own it fully. It's paid off.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost me anything to run except for, of course, insurance and fuel, that regular maintenance type stuff.
Totally.
I also haven't had a huge maintenance bill like this in a couple years.
Mm-hmm.
So honestly, it sucked, but I didn't think it was an emergency. I didn't think that I needed a new car.
Of course.
But I was like, that's crazy that she even suggested that. And that told me that a lot of other people might have that same mentality.
Well, it's a big deal. And obviously, a $2,600 bill is not the thing that you want to wake up to one morning or get a phone call about. Because, that sucks. And, you can be the thriftiest, most budget-conscious person, and that's still a lot of money to come up with all of a sudden. So, I can definitely see how that might lead you to, think it's an emergency and be like, oh, my God, get out of there. But, I do think that is a question for a lot of people. It's when should I start thinking about a new car? And you brought that to us. And I was like, well, that's so interesting because when I was growing up, and they continue to be, my parents were, my mom and stepdad are both accountants. And so that's a really great thing to have in your life. I highly recommend it. You can't have mine, but that's fine. But having accountants in the family is really great because it does mean that I was just around a lot of very frank and a lot of very informed conversations about money growing up. And one of my parents' favorite things to do is to make spreadsheets of stuff and just be like, I wonder how much this would cost. And they'll go and do a spreadsheet and be like, oh, that's interesting. And I do remember being in the backseat of the car, listening to them be like, what would we do if we won the lottery? And they'd but it wasn't just we'd buy $1 million. They'd be like, okay, so this pile of money goes here and this pile of money goes here. Yeah. So it's a really, really useful thing. And I honestly don't know how anybody is an adult without having accountants in the family. It's been so useful. I just bought a house. I don't know how I would have done it without them. Just the budgeting help that you get from having accountants in the family is so wonderful and so awesome.
Yeah.
So when we were talking about it, you were like, okay, so what is your parents' theory on when it's time to buy a new car? So I reached out to my stepdad, Mark Reno. I would say what his accounting firm is, but he's looking to retire, so he's not looking for new customers.
Don't call him asking for advice.
He's already got enough kids asking him for stuff. But he was all too happy to talk to me about what his sort of theory about how to do the math on when it's time to buy a new car. So this isn't like, this isn't advice. We're not prescribing anything to anybody, but this is just sort of a way to think about how to do the math on like, when is it advantageous to buy a new car?
Yeah. And so just to clarify a couple points, like if you lease, this won't really apply to you.
Yeah.
Like this really only applies if you own your car, and it's like starting to get concerning, not concerning, but like, maybe the repair bills are starting to pile up. You're noticing it making some weird noises that you might want to get checked out.
Maybe you see a new car that you think, ooh, that looks pretty shiny.
Right? So there's a lot of different people who I think this can apply to.
Totally.
Especially if budget is a concern.
Yes.
Obviously, if you're swimming in cash, this is not going to be that helpful for you. But for anyone who's working on a budget, which I think is most of us in this economy.
In this economy, absolutely. And like with how much cars cost these days, it's so much more. This is sort of, this podcast was sort of inspired by an article that I wrote. And in it, I did the math with $500 a month. And I was actually having a hard time finding a car that you could finance for that small amount of money.
No shade to you, but when I was editing this story, I'm like, nobody's paying $500 a month for a car. It's at least double.
It was largely to make the math easier.
Yeah, it's just for easy math. So like, don't rely on this. It's just napkin math.
Yes.
What's more important here is Mark kind of outlines some questions that you should ask yourself and some like napkin math calculations that you might want to do to help things make more sense.
Totally.
So let's start at the beginning and go through kind of like the first question that you should ask yourself.
Yeah, and that's one of the things he said. He said it's a decision tree, so you're just trying to fall down the decision tree, and you're trying to answer every question along the way. And the first question that he asks himself is, can I get to where I'm going? And like that is his most important question. His parents, my also grandparents, lived in Ottawa, and we grew up around Toronto. So for much of our lives, the question was, can I jump in the car tomorrow and go to Ottawa, which is a 4-hour drive from Oshawa, not Toronto, but anyway. And so that's like a reasonably long drive and something that we did frequently. And so that was his question is, can the car do what I need it to do? Because if it can't do that, then you need a new car. It is like, the rest of these questions don't matter as much. So like if you are fortunate enough to be thinking of buying a new car, which obviously not everybody can, but like, and you can't get to the places you're going, then your car sucks.
So at this point, the money equation doesn't even matter anymore.
Yeah,
because you don't have the tool to do the job.
You don't have the tool. Yeah, exactly. Your tool is broken, so you need a new car. So that's question one. Question two is, how much would a new car cost? So this is a really great point in the story to go to an online configurator, go to whatever. Say you're looking for a RAV4, go to Toyota.ca, make the car that you want.
Yeah, do the build and price tool.
Exactly. Do the build and price. And then they will normally show you like how much it is in cash, how much it is if you want to lease it, and how much it is if you want to finance it. So that'll give you sort of what your monthly budget or what your new monthly budget will be. And so that's sort of like, you want to start thinking about, that's the number that you're comparing everything against. And then the next thing you want to do after that is look at how much you're spending right now. So like you did, if you are looking at repairs and you're thinking, okay, $2,600, that's kind of scary. But like, you have to think of that. If that's how much you've spent this year on your car, like if that's the only repair you've had this year, $2,600 divided by 12, that's your monthly bill. So that's a number that you can compare against. So whatever, to make the math a little easier, let's say the bill was $2,400 and that's $200 a month. So there you go. You can compare like, your whatever, say a RAV4 is like $900 a month. And this year you spent $200 a month on your Golf, then you're way ahead. This is the point at which you might be thinking like, well, maybe the RAV4 will be cheaper on fuel because it's a newer car. Maybe I won't have to spend as much on insurance for whatever reason because it's a newer car or whatever, which I don't think is true. But those are small, but those are going to be much smaller changes, much smaller differences from like a new car to an old car because like
payments.
Yeah, payments are the big difference and repairs because like no matter what car you get, whether it's your whether it's your Golf or whether it's a newer car, you're still going to have to buy insurance. You're still going to have to pay for gas. And like all things considered, those are going to be smaller monthly changes than, either your new car payments or your car repairs. So that's, so those are those are the two pieces of math that you really need to look at each other. But there are obviously complicating factors. And I think one of the big ones is, especially for people in your position, who have an older car and have like 200,000 kilometers on it. Mark described it as a hockey stick curve for repairs. So, obviously you buy a new car, you're not expecting to have a lot of repairs because it's brand new. So for the first, 5 years of a car's life, you can expect to pay very little for repairs. But once stuff starts going wrong, then it's sort of like it snowballs really fast. So, on your car, it was pretty small stuff. You had to do a transmission flush.
Mhm.
That's like fluids. That's fine. You sort of expect that. But say you have an engine problem. That could you could get a quote for a repair that's like, whatever. Say a seal is broken or something. And that could be a big repair. And you could be like, okay, well, that's fixed. But a lot of the time when you have a problem in your engine, it leads to other problems in other places.
Exactly.
And as your car ages, more stuff starts going wrong. Fluids start aging, seals start degrading. It's just been running for longer. Stuff starts accumulating. There's rust that you have to consider too. So like that is something that you want to start thinking about. And that is why the fourth step of the decision tree is to look at sort of what you're comfortable with in terms of repairs. This changes from person to person. It's like this is sort of more of a personal decision that you want to think about because you may be comfortable with doing some repairs on your own, which could help you save money.
Mm-hmm.
And you may be helpful and you might hate all your local mechanics for whatever reason. You might be like, it's grungy in there. Everything's covered in that sort of dusty oil.
Yep.
They have terrible coffee. I feel intimidated going into there, so I just can't stand it. What Mark says, though, is that you shouldn't be waiting for your monthly repair costs to cost as much as your car payments. So say you have next year, say you have a $5,000 repair bill. And that is starting to get a little bit more. And it's starting to get when you do the monthly math, the monthly payments and the monthly repair bills are starting to get closer and closer. So he says that you should be waiting until your repair bills are between 40 and 70% of your
Potential new car payment.
Yeah, exactly. So say your monthly car payment is $1,000 a month. If you're paying $700 a month in repairs, Mark says that he would think that that's time to change. In fact, he says that when monthly repair costs get to about 60% of what your monthly finance bill will be, then he starts thinking about it.
Yeah, because at that point, it's only going to get worse and faster.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And so eventually, you're going to be pouring money into that car, and it is like just cheaper for you at that point to get a new one.
Yeah, and you're spending less time at the mechanics, which is like that's inconvenience to you. That means that you don't have as much. Your car isn't doing your job, and also it's also important to consider that like a busted car is worth less. So if your car is like the older your car gets, the less and less it's worth.
Yeah.
And the less you can get for it when you trade it in for something newer.
Yeah, exactly. Or else you'll just end up having to like donate it somewhere and get a tax receipt or something, which isn't great. So my previous Golf, I've had like three or four Golfs. I really like Golfs. My previous Golf it was like a 2008 Rabbit. They called it a Rabbit back then.
Mm-hmm.
And it was high kilometers. It was needed new brakes, like massive jobs. And at that time, I could only sell it for like $8,000, but it needed like $5,000 worth of work.
Yeah.
So at that point, I was like, okay, I'm not going to do the work.
Yeah.
I'm just going to sell it for $5,000, and then someone can put in the money to fix it up, maybe at the dealer or something.
Totally.
And I can guarantee you, if I hung on to that, it would end up costing me way more.
Totally. And yeah, so the more it's worth, the more you can put against the cost of a new vehicle, and that lowers your monthly bills. So that's an important thing to consider. And yeah, it is important in all of this. It's important to consider that you have a life to lead, and that like if you can afford some wiggle room in your budget, then like prioritizing yourself and your own sanity is like very worthwhile. You should be, you don't want to live a terrible life where you're not sure if you can get to your next destination and you're spending all of your time in, having with your car in the shop, having to go spend the afternoon there, not doing any work, sitting in the.
Yeah, it's not a fun experience to be waiting there on your car.
Yeah, exactly. And sorry, this is no shade to mechanics. They do a vital work, and it's important to keep, it's great to keep cars on the road, and I love mechanics, but it is inconvenient to your day.
Yeah, and I mean, just going back to my current car, right? So a lot of the stuff that needed to be done had never been done before.
Mm-hmm.
And the way I see maintenance is like, yeah, it's not fun to spend that much money on it, but I see this as preventative, right?
Totally.
So if I don't pay up for it now and fix it, it'll evolve into a much more expensive problem down the road.
Well, yeah, totally.
Right? So deal with it when you can and when it's comfortable, rather than having it snowball into something way worse.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
Which I think is tempting for a lot of people just to avoid that big bill, but you're really just like kicking the can down the road, right?
Yeah, kicking the can down the road, and it's getting bigger and bigger as it goes down the road. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, regular maintenance is a big deal. It does suck to have to pay to whatever, change the oil all the time and do all that kind of stuff. But it is really saving you money in the long run.
Yeah, and there's other ways, like I remember, so in this case, he was like, oh, you need an alignment. And I said, okay, well, you're putting my winter tires on anyway. So if I need an alignment, maybe you don't have to charge me to put on the winter tires because you're going to be taking the wheels off anyway.
Totally.
And they were like, yeah, okay. And I was like, boom, I just saved myself $80. I was pretty happy about that because it makes a dent, right?
Oh, yeah,
so
absolutely.
It's like, try to time it in a way that will work for you. $80, that's quite a bit of money. That's groceries for like a week, right?
Yeah, that's groceries. That's a show.
I was very pleased to save that $80.
Absolutely.
And so like, don't be scared to ask your mechanic, like, when would be a better time for me to do this? If it's not like an emergency.
Totally.
I think there's some wiggle room for some of these repairs.
And I think that is one of the things that's difficult about repairs is that they feel like they happen all at once, where, yeah, all of a sudden you have a bigger bill than you're expecting. So it can be harder, if you're not a saver, it can be harder to deal with a big $2,600 bill than whatever, over the course of a year, having to do $200 at a time. But this is where the concept of amortization comes in, where, yes, that is a bigger bill, that's a bigger number, but like over the course of a year, you're actually saving money. So it's important to think of repairs in the long term, because ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to drive your car for as long as possible while spending as little money as possible. And you're trying to think of it over the life of the car. And so, thinking about it year to year, I think is useful when it comes to repairs because cars go wrong all at once sometimes. So, it would be tempting to be like, oh, I've owned this car for 10 years. I've only had to pay $2,600 in repairs for it. So the lifetime repairs are whatever that amounts to, month by month. It's like a tiny amount, but because cars go wrong all at once, you have to sort of limit your vision a little bit and close the window into an amount of time where the math makes sense, which in Mark's opinion, is over the course of a year. So every year you should be reassessing how much you're spending month to month to keep your car on the road.
Yeah. And
whether that's a new one where it's just payments or an older one where that's repairs. And trying to keep in mind that you don't want to be waiting until parity, until repair costs and monthly payments are the same amount.
Yeah. Or you're stuck in a situation where you like need to go somewhere and your car is just not up to the task.
Yeah, totally.
Right. And then you're going to have to like rent a car. That's going to cost you money. So it's like you're going to try to want to prevent those costs from piling up. And yeah, I don't know. Cars need maintenance. Like I think a lot of people don't budget for that kind of stuff, but I think as much as you budget You make room in your monthly budget for stuff like gas and insurance. You should always be setting aside a little bit every month in case your car needs a repair.
Totally.
And, you add that up every month, and then all of a sudden you're well equipped in case like an emergency happens, right?
Absolutely. And if an emergency doesn't happen, then bonus. That money is still there.
Make it rain.
Yeah.
Go buy something fun for yourself, right? And then save up again next year.
Yeah.
Or the smart person would keep those savings rolling.
Or you don't have to save it for the next year or whatever. Yeah. There are all kinds of ways to make that work for yourself. But yeah, trying to keep in mind your monthly budget and trying to just squirrel money away whenever you can is like a really big help and does end up making a lot of these decisions a lot easier. And I know that that's a luxury that a lot of people don't have. And like, for a lot of people, you're hand to mouth. You're spending all of your money every week. And like, totally, that sucks. And then you have to make different decisions and obviously make the decision that makes the most sense for you. But if you have the luxury of having a surplus every month or year or whatever, then trying to stay ahead of bills is a really good idea rather than trying to like catch up when all of a sudden something goes wrong.
I like to have a good safety net. This is why I shop at a lot of thrift stores and buy a lot of my stuff secondhand.
That makes a lot of sense.
But I was also really shocked. So we were having a conversation in the office like a couple weeks ago. And someone was like, "Oh, Joe," I think it was Michael, our former intern, was like, "Jody, what would you replace your Golf with if you had to replace it?"
Yeah.
And I was like, I would want a used Acura Integra Type S because I love that car.
It's a great car.
And then you were like, you went on AutoTrader and were like, "Jody, a used one is like $60,000." I was like, I was having a conniption because I was like, "Oh, easily, I would pick." And I'm like, I actually can't afford that.
It's shocking how expensive cars are.
And so now I'm more motivated than ever to get like every last drop from my Golf.
Totally. And I do think that that's an important thing to consider. And I think that probably a lot of listeners are, vaguely aware of what's going on in the automotive industry. But it's easy not to think about how much a new car costs in the 10 years that you own a new car, because that's a solved problem. I don't need to think about how much, whatever a new car costs right now because I have that. But like, especially since 2018, car prices have increased so incredibly that even people like in our office, among a bunch of people whose job it is to look at car prices, we are constantly shocked at how much used cars, how much cars cost in general, because it's really expensive. So I think that keeping an eye on that and sort of like keeping an eye on how much it would cost you to finance a new car, even when you don't really need it. Say you're like one of us and your car's like 9 years old and it's not really time to start thinking about a new car. It can be helpful to still be like, oh, it would cost me whatever, $800 a month to get the equivalent vehicle just on the road and just to keep it that way. That really, I find that very motivating to be like, okay, I'm really going to do repairs on my car. And I'm really going to be like, okay, so when am I changing the oil? Because I really want to focus on that. And trying to like keep that in mind to help you maintain your car and to like motivate you to maintain your car is very helpful for me because like, it's easy to be like, it's far to go to the mechanic and it's like kind of expensive and it's like kind of an afternoon of my life that I should spend in a different way. So it's easy to be like, I don't want to do it. But like when you know how much it would cost you to get a new car on the road, you're like, oh, okay.
You feel extra motivated.
I'm going to do it.
For sure.
Yeah, totally. So I think it's another thing to keep in mind is that this math isn't just for people who are looking for a new car. This decision tree can help you make decisions with your current car as well.
Well, thank you so much, Mark, for all that stepdad advice. I'm going to be using this next time I get a big repair bill.
Yes.
And I hope you guys do too. Before our Ask an Expert, here is a message from your friends at AutoTrader. We at Own the Road love making car stuff simple for Canadians, and the AutoTrader app does the exact same thing. Sign up for price drop notifications, find out how much your car is worth, get an instant cash offer from a vetted dealership, get all your expert advice, and more. Download the AutoTrader app today. So today's Ask an Expert comes from Colleen. She says, what's your take on the Chevrolet Silverado LT EV versus the Chevy Silverado RST EV? I still have range anxiety and live in rural Nova Scotia, and it's difficult to find public charging stations. That has caused me to look at their extended and max range battery options. Keep smiling. Well, thank you, Colleen, for your question. Okay, so first of all, Chevy Silverado EV, great truck. I've driven it before. That platform, the Ultium platform that it's built on, is one of the industry's best, I would say.
They've done a really good job.
Very confident in that powertrain, and the fact that it's in a truck, I think, is really, really good. If range is your main concern, the RST Max range is rated for the most range in that whole lineup at 740 kilometers, which is massive.
That's such an enormous amount of range.
That is so much range.
Yeah.
That is almost more than like any other EV currently on sale now, I think.
It's pretty, it's up there.
Yeah.
And it's like a massive vehicle, so it makes sense.
I mean, because this one has the bigger battery, so it has a 205 kilowatt hour battery. Versus the 170 that's in the lower trim EV trucks.
Well, and just for context, like some perfectly reasonable, perfectly usable EVs have 80 kilowatt hour batteries. That is a normal number.
And this one has 205.
Yeah, that's so wild. That's a lot of range, or a lot of battery.
Yeah, and like I'm not sure if you're like towing or hauling or anything like that, but if you're running it like in regular without any cargo, that'll get you really, really far. Obviously, if you're towing, you're going to have to scale those estimates down quite a bit.
Yes.
But the LT extended range is 657, and the RST extended range is 628. So honestly, they're all really high figures.
Yeah.
LT might be a better pick if you're towing because there's more towing features in there, but it doesn't have as much range. So just be careful what you pick based on like what you're using it for. I would definitely recommend installing a level 2 charger at your home.
Yes.
I think that would be like very important into getting the most out of your truck.
And I do think that in consumer reporting or something, the single factor that has led to the most satisfaction amongst EV drivers is having a level 2 charger at home.
Not surprised at all.
Because it changes the game. All of a sudden, the lack of public charging areas around, was it Nova Scotia?
Rural Nova Scotia
is like, I understand that's a real issue. That sucks and we should have more public chargers. But you don't have to think of it like a gas station because it's not the only place that you can charge up anymore. And now it only matters if you're doing like a road trip that you don't have those.
Yeah, exactly. So I did a little digging. Tourism Nova Scotia says there are about 50 or more DC fast charging ports in the province, and many of them go up to speeds of 180 kilowatts, which is very fast. That should get you to like from 10 to 80% in like half an hour or something like that. So it's not bad at all. But really, like, I want to know where you're driving, Colleen, because the whole length of Nova Scotia is 580 kilometers. And yes, there's like, I think it's like 13,000 kilometers of coast or something like that.
Yeah, coast is very different.
But the map of chargers, they're all kind of close together. The furthest ones apart are only 70 kilometers apart.
Yeah. So
even if you're driving along the coast, there's multiple opportunities for you to top up and charge. If that, 700, 600 kilometers of range isn't doing it for you.
Totally.
I think you should reevaluate the need for fast public charging. I know that the Silverado EV has a very, very good infotainment system and navigation system that is extremely helpful for finding charging stations.
And sort of planning trips.
And trip planning. So in this navigation system, you will be able to find chargers. You can filter them based on speed. If you're using the actual navigation, and you put your destination as a fast charger, it'll precondition the battery for more efficient charging.
Yeah.
If you use it to put in a route and it says, oh, you don't have enough range to get there, it will add a charging stop for you and update your ETA based on the charging time. So I would rely very heavily on those tools to help you maybe make that transition.
Yeah, they've been putting a lot of thought into navigation for EVs with good reason, but it's so helpful and there are all kinds of things. And I do think that this is one of the areas where we have such a luxury that a lot of people don't, which is we get to spend a week at a time with cars that aren't our own. And that has cured me of range anxiety more than anything else. Spending a week with an EV where you're like, actually, even 400 kilometers of range is a lot.
It's a lot, and it's more than enough for even someone like me who doesn't have home charging.
Yeah.
I would be very comfortable in like the 400 to 500 range. Anything over 500 to me, I'd be like, bet, like that's amazing.
Yeah, totally.
And so, Colleen, I would like you to write us back and let me know like where you're driving to, why do you have range anxiety? I get that range anxiety is a real thing because before I had a lot of experience with EVs, I was like doing all the calculations. Like I was very nervous about running out of range. But the charging situation now is like so much better than it used to be. These EV platforms are so much more advanced than they used to be. They'll take you so much further, especially with this platform. Those range estimates are also oftentimes underrated.
Yeah.
So like
if you're a careful driver,
you could actually squeeze out way more range from that estimate.
Totally.
So, I would say, Colleen, test it out a little bit. Try to keep tabs on really how much you're driving.
Yeah, I think that's a really good practice. Try and like set your trip meter, your trip odometer for a week, and just see how many kilometers you drive in that week.
Yeah.
And I bet you I obviously don't know your situation. I understand that in rural areas you have to drive farther to get everything. So like maybe you are driving really far, and maybe that. But either way, I think this is going to be a really informative way to look at it and to actually see a number. And you're like, oh, actually, this week I drove 30 kilometers or I drove 8,000 kilometers. And you can be like, oh, actually, maybe an EV isn't for me at all. Or you can be like, actually, maybe I don't need to spend the money on the max range. Maybe I can have the LT.
Because it is very expensive. I will say, like, the max range Chevy Silverado is like, it's like far surpasses six figures. I think it's almost closer to like 120 or something like that.
Yeah.
So if there's like a little bit of opportunity to take a smaller battery option and save some cash, I think that would be really nice too.
Totally.
But I'm excited for you, Colleen.
Yeah.
I want to know what you end up getting, or if you have any additional questions, you can email us at expert@trader.ca. And thank you so much for your question. For the rest of you, we love your questions and we love your topic suggestions. So send them to us. Make sure to download the AutoTrader app. You can find all sorts of good stuff on there, but also all of the lovely content that Seb, I, and Dan make for you. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you like the show and the podcast, make sure to leave a little review for us because it really helps. We want more people to discover this, and we want to make car stuff more simple for more people.
Hey, there we go.
So thank you so much for joining us. Drive safe, and we'll see you next time.